What's going on, everyone? It's Mike, it's John back again. Following an away win, one I wasn't really expecting, away at Fulham, 3-1. Good performance. Another goal by Beto, which I think we do need to... We may need to start changing our tune a little bit on Beto, John, to be honest, because me and you text each other and I don't know, maybe we've been a bit harsh on the boy, but who knows? Let's get into it. First of all, first half an hour, what did you think of that?
I think the first half an hour represented the team selection by David Moyes. The team come out and I was just like, man, what are you doing here? You know, Michael Keane, we know he's not going to be at the club. And you did send me a message when I sent, he's won one game in 10 and he's picking Ashley Young. He's picking Michael Keane. He's picking Beto instead of giving Chimiti a go. And I was just like, the first half hour, Everton got what they deserved, mate. With the team selection got what it deserved. But what a turnaround. We scored just before half time. Everton were by far the best team in the second half, in my opinion. Considering the season Fulham have had, I wasn't expecting that. In the match preview, we did say, I said I expected a boring 0-0 draw. The second half performance from Everton definitely wasn't boring.
No, but the one thing I would say is David Moyes made those substitutions and it just shows the benefit of a bit of strength and depth. And I'm not saying that as in, the first 11 were good and then he made good substitutions. The first 11, there was players in there that would not play for Everton Football Club next season. We know that. They're poor players. So when you can make those changes and you're bringing on a little bit of quality in Njai, in McNeil, you could see that Everton had the ability to step it up. In my opinion, we were lucky to go in 1-1 at half-time because they did have chances. Fulham, Pickford made a couple of good saves. There was even a couple in the second half he made good saves, especially that lob where he just gets his hand on it. Flick, lovely. But having that little bit of quality on the bench really helped us. And that's what I think we need to aim towards because, Everton are currently 13th in the table, right? If all the results stay as they are, Everton yet again are on top of this mini league with them bottom 8 clubs. The 3 that are getting relegated and then Everton, Wolves, West Ham, Man United and Tottenham. Now, we're probably going to lose to Newcastle, but I expect us to beat Southampton next week because if I'm being honest, if it's one like Ipswich the week before, I'll be fuming. So I think Everton finish on 45 points. When you take away the game, obviously we'll talk about the goals and stuff in a minute, but when you take away the games that Moyes has been involved with, take yourself back to December. You've lost 2-0 at home to Nottingham Forest, and I'm pretty sure Everton were either 17th or 18th, being the lowest goal scorers in the league, if I'm not mistaken, joint with Southampton. Did you see this?
Mate, I didn't see it. And I wanted to mention Beto. I know we're going to talk about him, but they showed a little chart this morning of how many goals the top strikers in the Premier League have scored, and Beto's scored 7 goals since January. He's the first Everton player to score double figures since 2022. What does that tell you? For me, Beto's, he's done well under David Moyes, and we've been a big critic of Beto on it here, but we've always had humble pie if we've have to. And listen, I'm not saying Beto's good enough to take us forward next season. I'm not. But you can't fault him for his attitude and the goals he's scored since David Moyes come in. Going back to, you mentioned the substitutions with McNeil and Ndiaye, that pushed Everton onto another level. Everton were doing okay when them 2 players come on. They were already doing okay. And then the bit of quality that come on, McNeil and Ndiaye, it worked. And we've been a big critic for David Moyes on this channel the last couple of weeks with some of the substitutions and the in-game management that he's made. I thought yesterday he got it absolutely spot on with his substitutions. So going forward, mate, there was some really good performances yesterday. I'm going to say it now. I haven't had a chance to watch a match reaction, but Jordan Pickford was my man of the match. That's what he's there for. People on the telly are saying about, Jordan Pickford's kept Everton up the last couple of seasons. Well, maybe he has, but that's his job. He's a goalkeeper. That's his job. He's not going to stand there and let them in. I just thought yesterday he made important saves at the right time, and that lifted the rest of the team. And I just thought the second half performance yesterday was probably one of the best we've seen for a good few weeks.
Yeah, and do you know what as well? I'm pretty sure I'll actually give my man of the match to Alcaraz.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I thought Alcaraz played well. We can get him for 15 million apparently. But I just thought, oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm not being funny. Whatever the transfer kit is going to be, we need to see more from Alcaraz. We've criticised him on here, but we also realise what Alcaraz can bring to this team, and he brings something to this team that we haven't really got any other players who can do what he does. He'll pick the ball up, he'll drive forward, but he'll tackle back as well. There was a few yesterday where, at our left back position where he was back helping Mikalenko out, he was clearing it for corners for Fulham. He's a workhorse, and we've always had a workhorse in this Everton squad for as long as I can remember. We've got one with Adrissa Guy at the minute. Looks like he's probably going to go. Alcaraz can come in. I'm not saying he's going to be as good as Adrissa Guy, but for 15 million, mate, I think it'll be a good bit of business now.
I think the other thing as well, because I keep alluding to Alcaraz, and I go back. People might not remember this, but I remember this because this particular player was my idol, right? And I've gone on about him several times when I was growing up. But the player that he hits me is Mikel Arteta.
Yeah.
And in that first loan season with Arteta, he was great. He was decent. He was okay. But when we signed him, he got better and better and better. And he grew and he grew and he grew. And he'd gone from being this lad we'd got from Rangers and Barcelona and, all of this stuff into an Everton, at the time, a really integral part of Everton Football Club. And we got the best years out of Arteta before selling him to Arsenal. And let's be honest, he was decent at Arsenal, but he was never the player he was at Everton, at Arsenal. So he reminds me of the younger Mikel Arteta because he's got that bit of skill, he's got that bit of ability, and he'll shoot from range. He can pick a pass. I was really, yesterday was the most complete performance from Alcaraz, in my opinion, yesterday. And because of all of the things you've just mentioned, because he not only did he assist, he got an assist, but he also tracked back. He also defended. It was almost like a perfect 8 yesterday, and I was really, really happy with Alcaraz. I was.
I think, you speak about Arteta and you speak about Alcaraz. I think Alcaraz is one of them players where the more game time he gets and the more we see him, the more he will improve. Yeah. I do think he's got it in his locker. I think don't get me wrong, I think he can get a lot better. I do think he can get a lot better. But from what we've seen, with him getting more game time and his age, again, I'll say it again, I think for 15 million, mate, we could do worse than signing someone like him who will give you options, as you quite right, you pointed out. He can get an assist, he can tackle back, he can pick a pass out, he will run, he will work hard, he will put sweat on his shirt, and that's all we ask for. But I think he's got a bit more than that, and I think with a full pre-season under David Moyes, with better players around him as well, I do think Alcaraz can step up to another level.
Yeah. The other player I wanted to mention from yesterday is Michael Keane. He yet again scored yesterday. I feel like when he starts, he scores. He's more of a threat in the opposite box than he is. Now, I'm certainly not saying keep him. Obviously not. But I don't understand why all of his attributes seem to be that he's got a clean strike on him and he can head a ball really well. Why has nobody played him further forward? I don't. Look, I'm not saying all of a sudden convert him into the centre forward and sign him. I'm not saying that. But wherever he goes to in the summer, that team should look at him and go, right, he's a bang average defender, but it might get you a goal.
I think Michael Keane is more of an impact player. When you're chasing the game, he can pop up with a goal. We've seen that in the past. I just want to talk about his overall performance yesterday. I thought for someone who hasn't played for quite a while, thought he'd come in and he'd done a decent job at centre-half, and obviously he chips in with the goal. He looked quite solid to me. He really did look quite solid. And when you've got players who Fulham have got who can hurt you, especially if they get at your centre-halves, what Michael Keane coped quite well. And again, I'm in your camp. No way, shape or form am I saying we should keep Michael Keane. But you can't diss Michael Keane. When he has played, he has given us all. And yeah, he has got a mistake. He has got a mistake in him, and he can get inside out when certain types of players are running at him, and he can twist and he can turn him. But I think for his heading ability, he'll put it in where it hurts, and he's got goal scoring ability as well. And I just don't think anyone can really sit here and say he hasn't done well for Everton in, the bigger picture. He's not good enough to take us to the next level. Keep talking about the next level because that's where we've got to go. He won't be part of that, but I don't think we can really slag him off for a lack of attitude when he has pulled that blue shirt on.
Yeah, I mean, there's been times in the past where you could have criticised him, but equally he was getting a lot of stick,
Mate, he was getting a lot of stick, and he was making mistakes, and I think it was about 7 games on the run. He wasn't playing well, and we were screaming to get him out the team. And eventually, I think it was Sean Dyche who did take him out the team. And since that, he hasn't had many minutes under his belt at Everton Football Club. But since that, and since that poor run of 7 or 8 games where he knew the crowds were getting on his back, and I think it was around the time that it come out, Michael Keane had been suffering mentally, and he had things going on that could have contributed to it. I don't know. But since then, since he hasn't been a regular in the team, when he has been called upon, I don't think you can really have a pop at his attitude.
So I've got a stat for you. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, 24 appearances, 3 goals. Abdoulaye Doucouré, 31 appearances, 3 goals. Dwight McNeil, 19 appearances, 4 goals. Michael Keane, 12 appearances, 3 goals.
But when you bring the stats out, you brought stats out the other night. We were comparing Beto with some players and all that. And again, they're players who are not gifted with a great footballing ability. They're not. But when they're called upon, they do seem to pop up with a goal or an assist or a performance. I actually thought Beto done okay yesterday. I listened to David Moyes' after-match interview, and he turned around and he said since him and his coaching staff have come into the club, they can't fault Beto for his attitude and his running. Yeah, as I say, on the eye, he's not a very good footballer to watch. He couldn't trap a bag of cement. But for his endeavour and to give his all for that blue shirt and to score 10 goals this season when he hasn't played loads of games. Do you know what I mean? He hasn't played loads. I just think we've actually got to start giving Beto a bit of praise. Again, going forward, he won't be the number 1 striker. Well, I hope he's not. But he's very, very capable. If he's willing to stick around, to be a number 2, to come on and be an impact player, because we've seen he's a better finisher than Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Got a bit of luck with his goal yesterday, don't get me wrong. But he put it in the right place for the goalkeeper to make that mistake and to shoot from there and to get it in the corner off a mistake by the goalkeeper. I think it just showed that when you compare him to Dominic Calvert-Lewin and his scoring ability and his one-on-ones and he doesn't fall to pieces, I think he's got better ability when he's through on the keeper one-on-one than what Lewin has.
Well, I've got more stats for everyone.
He's the best man.
How many starts do you think Beto's made this season?
This season?
15. 26.
23.
Beto has scored 8 goals in 13 starts.
Yeah. So he's better when he starts because he's only scored 10 all season.
I don't know the goals difference between starts and whatever, but in those games where he started, if you think he started yesterday, he started at least the 5 where he scored 5 in a row, and that was out of the 13. So he's scoring 1 in 2 in his starts.
Yeah.
It's we've slagged off Beto and we've moaned about Beto. And in certain games, Beto is not the striker to play. The games where you've got to go long to get out of pressure, that's sounding awful. The Liverpool games, the Man City games, the Arsenal games. You need someone who can keep the ball at that end of the pitch to give your defenders and midfield a rest. Beto's not your man for that. But 2 slow centre-halves, and you've got someone in that midfield that can play those balls through that channel. Beto is absolutely that striker.
I think
not only yesterday did he score, but he also put the balls in the box for other players to score, and they weren't there.
We've spoke about Beto on here. Yes, he did score the header against Ipswich, was a great ball in. But I think Beto's a better striker, as you've just said, when he can run in behind the opposition's defence or the ball's played through the channels. I think it was Leicester he done it at Goodison as well. I think that the ball was from James Garner. I might be wrong. Yeah, but again, the ball's through the channels. Once Beto gets them legs going, mate, there's not really anyone who's catching him. It takes him a couple of seconds to get up to speed. But once he's away and he's bearing down on goal, I actually think he's probably the best player at the club for a one-on-one situation.
Yeah, and I went on the One Leeds fan channel last week, and I quite harshly criticised Beto, because he was talking about a move away, and I was saying, mate, if you want to sign him for 15, 20 million, go for it. Not an issue. Me and John will drive him there. We actually said it. We'll drive him there. I want to change that statement now. 30 million pounds, Beto can go. If not, I'd happily keep him next season. I'd lose Lewin, and I'd keep Beto. I still think we need a striker. I still think we need a number 1 striker. But I'm not digging out Beto for his performance, his goals, his attitude. I'm absolutely not. And sometimes that's all you need. Sometimes that's all you need. And in the right game, he'll be the right striker to start. So I think Everton need to be sensible about what they do going forward. But for me, running in behind from a ball player, I think Beto is a good option.
Well, when you look at 8 and 13 starts, there's not many strikers in the Premier League with stats like that. Obviously, you've got the likes of your Salahs and obviously, your Haalands, which, you can't compare Beto to any of them. But when you're scoring 8 and 13 starts, then you don't get a player like that for 15 million, mate. You don't. Now, consistency is the big thing for Beto. Can he do it as a number 1 striker over the season? Probably not. We do need a number 1 striker to come in. As I said before, he will be a very capable backup, someone to bring off the bench. And I totally agree with you. I'd rather bring the likes of Beto off the bench if we had a better striker at the club than Dominic Calvert-Lewin. If I had the choice now, mate, some people will agree with this, some people will disagree. If I had the choice now of keeping Dominic Calvert-Lewin or Beto next season, I'm all over Beto. I'm all over Beto. I don't think you can count on Calvert-Lewin, even as a number 2 striker, even as someone who'll come on and try and get you a goal to get you back into the game. You can't count on Dominic Calvert-Lewin to do that, but I think you can count on Beto to do it more.
I'm going to throw one more stat at you. One more point, one more thing before we just finish off this debrief. David Moyes coming on the 15th of January. We lost 1-0 at home to Aston Villa. We have lost 4 games under David Moyes.
A lot of draws, though.
A lot of draws. Do you know who those defeats were against?
City, Liverpool, Villa. You said Villa. Villa. City, Liverpool, Villa, and Newcastle. Not Newcastle.
Chelsea.
Yeah.
Now, I think in most seasons, I could say that Everton may well lose those games.
Yeah.
I think when you look at that and you sit there and you go in and you look at our away record, and we've gone to Fulham, we've won. We've gone to Forest and won. We've pulled out results at places like Palace.
The Emirates.
The Amex.
Emirates.
I think he honestly, there is too many draws in there, and it could have been better. But when I looked at that game yesterday, and David Moyes was asked this question, he was asked a question, something like, "Is this more the David Moyes side you want to see?" And he went, "No." Genuinely, next season, I think if we can keep certain players, i.e., I think Garner, I'd like to keep Garner for another season. I think if we keep Alcaraz and sign him, strengthen those wings positions, bring in another centre forward, right back, centre half, I honestly think this Everton team could be really good. And I actually think David Moyes is a better manager now than he was when he was first with us. Because I watched that game yesterday, and it was one of those games where it was easier for him because he had the quality on the bench. But he managed to get a team that I would say that Everton team yesterday could have been a championship team. The defence was that poor. You know, when you look at the Michael Keane starting, Ashley Young starting, we're not big fans of James Garner. Jack Harrison, Decore, was awful yesterday. I mean, this whole staying 120 grand a week, whatever salary, mate. Look, I really appreciate your goals, but go away. Well, we're done. Them comments, mate, really rattled me. I just thought that team yesterday could have been one of those relegation sort of title, teams, those in there, top 3 of the Championship, bottom 3 of the Premier League, that sort of level. David Moyes got that team, as you rightly said, when he made those substitutions, we were still the better team with a poor team. That Fulham team is no joke.
Do you know, when you look at that performance yesterday from a David Moyes team, we know, every Everton fan knows that this squad of players and this team lacks quality. So for me to stand here now and say that was a typical David Moyes performance with a squad of players who he knows is not good enough in certain areas, and every Everton fan knows that it's not good enough in certain parts, of the team. There's some really average players in this squad. But for David Moyes to go to Fulham yesterday and win 3-1, it was a typical David Moyes performance, and he got the best out of an average group of players. Obviously, he had the quality to bring on McNeil and Dye, but the others, I think he got the best out of a bang. I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of that starting 11 yesterday for me is a bang average Premier League team, if they're even a Premier League players. For him to get that result at Craven Cottage against a good Fulham team, I will give David Moyes praise, because I've slagged him off the last couple of weeks, with some of his team selections, as I said before, his substitutions, his in-game management. For me, yesterday, David Moyes got it spot on, and he got the best out of a group of players who aren't blessed with quality, in my opinion.
I actually thought yesterday we looked like we're more geared to playing away from home, because we know that we've been poor at home this season. We've only won 4 times. We've actually won more times away from home than we have at home this season, which in the Everton world, that has to be some weird I think the last time I could remember and recall that is probably under Carlo Ancelotti, because we were great away from home and absolutely dog shit at home, and it ended up costing us, and not just a European place, but I actually thought that season we could have qualified for the Champions League at one point. We were second in Boxing Day. We were
top. I think we were top at one point, weren't we?
Yeah, and I mean, we really fell apart at Goodison towards the end of that season. So, I'm looking at the stats. I look what David Moyes has done. Some of the away performances, the wins that he's got. The Palaces, as we rightly said, Palace, Brighton, Forest yesterday. I just can't fault him. And from a debrief perspective, I love the goals. First time we scored from a set piece. I still don't quite understand how they can review that for offside. Somebody, please.
I don't think it was for offside. I think it was they were looking at Alcaraz and infringement on the goalkeeper.
They did both.
Did you both? All right.
That's what I mean. So they did both. And somebody in the comments, please explain to me how you can review offside from a corner, because I don't get it. Is it because the ball's technically not in play? I don't understand. But if that's the case, let me know. But we scored from a set piece. Good header, Michael Keane. 2 minutes later, Beto through, as we said, 1-on-1. A keeper mistake. I mean, he should be saving it, but he scores 3-1. We just took the game by the scruff of the neck. We went, right, we're going to win this game. And we went and did it.
To finish off, I just want to follow on from what you said about the group of players and how we're playing better away from home than what we are at home. I think the squad of players Everton have, we could set up better away from home with what we've got. What we've got at our disposal at the minute, I actually think we're a better away team. Now, if we can mix it up for next season and still do well away from home, but then we need more quality to win more games at home. Then if we can mix that up next season, then I'm very excited to see what David Moyes with probably a squad of players who, for the majority of them, we're not going to recognise a lot of them. But I do think it's a squad of players who sets up better away from home. We need now a team who can perform at home and away.
Yeah, agreed. Completely agree. Right, guys, look, we will leave it there because I haven't really got anything else to add. I don't feel like I'm missing anyone out, really.
I thought James Garner was poor again.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I didn't even know he was playing. And again, we're not... Listen, we've won 3-1. And we do get slagged off sometimes when we dig players out, when we've had a victory. But again, there's some people who... It's like, my brother, he says he's the cog. He's the cog in the machine, James Garner. I'm sorry, Lee, you don't know football if you're going to watch this, mate. And I'll tell you that next Sunday, because James Garner is not good enough. There's certain players there who aren't good enough. The Corey was poor again. Jack Harrison didn't really do much. We need better quality. We need more quality as a squad-wise. And I'm excited for the summer and see what we can do next year in Bramley Moor. First full season under David Moyes. This squad of players, whoever's left after the contracts end or the loan deals end, I'm excited to see what he can do with the players he retains with a full pre-season and also the better quality that he's going to bring in. I think it's going to be an exciting summer and hopefully an exciting season next season.
Yeah, spot on. John, look, we'll leave it there. Obviously, it's going to be an emotional week for a lot of Evertonians. The build-up to probably, in terms of the core of Everton, probably the most historic day in our lives. Some people, some generations didn't even see this day. If you think about it, we've played at Goodison for over 100 years. There's some people that weren't fortunate enough to see that transition from Goodison Park into the new stadium, but there's also some people that saw Goodison Park holding 78,000 fans. So, you saw Everton at its absolute best, the absolute beacon of English football at one point. So it's going to be a sad week. We will be doing... I will be doing some stuff towards that. I need to work out what I'm doing, and I need to work out how John's going to play into it, because me and John we're going to have to choreograph something being in two different locations, so it's going to be quite tricky. But look, we will do something, and obviously we will be there for the game. So if you do see us come over, we have bought the shirts. John, I don't know if John has, but me and Finley have bought the shirts, so we will be wearing that Cambridge blue shirt for the game. So we'll be wearing that. And look, if any of you come over to us and see us and whatever, then obviously, as always, chat to us, speak to us, do whatever. We're there. It's going to be a sad day for everyone. So look, we'll leave it there. Match preview will be Friday. There'll be videos in the middle. Transfer news if we get it. Exciting times ahead. Keep smiling. Up the toffees. And I'm sure John's about to end the video with some gripping piece of information.
No, I was just going to say it's going to be a tough weekend a tough week with the build up to Sunday. I'm going to struggle this week, but
yeah,
it is what it is. We have to move on with the times, but yeah, I like cry over Emmerdale, so I'm trying to think what I'm going to be like next Sunday. I'm going to struggle this week, and then obviously next weekend it's the big one. I just want it to come and go now and just get it done with, you know what I mean? And then we go forward and we move on. But yeah, it's going to be a tough week for a lot of Everton fans.
Yeah. Right, guys, we'll leave it there. Keep smiling. Up the toffees. Peace out. Love you long time.